Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to the A24 project here in the Nerd Party Network, where me and Dallas King make our way through the A24 filmography and bring you interviews with the talent involved in front of and behind the camera along the way. In this episode, I'm joined by Tony Demil, who plays Joe in Janicza Bravo's Zola. Zola, a waitress, agrees to accompany an exotic dancer, Stephanie, played by Riley Keown, her put-upon boyfriend, and her mysterious and dominating roommate on a road trip to Florida to seek their fortune at a high-end strip club. Zola soon finds herself blindsided when Stephanie and her pimp ex add their profiles to a website that arranges sexual encounters. That first encounter is with Joe, played by today's guest, who arrives at their hotel and marks a pivotal moment in Zola's story and the movie's tone. This episode contains quite a bit of profanity and conversations about highly sensitive topics relating to the movie. Thanks so much to Tony for joining me, and I hope you too enjoy this episode.
They start fucking, it was gross.
Have you always been interested in sort of the creative arts and acting, Tony?
That's a really good question, man. I mean, honestly, I think I definitely owe credit to my mom. My mom one time, she made us dinner and then she had to go back to work, and she came back in and is like, literally as soon as we left, we like ran in front of the TV and like turned the TV on, and she had forgotten something. So she comes back in, loses it, grabs the TV cord and cuts the cord, no TV, I think we were like 8, 9, 10-ish, something like that. And so basically from then on, our entertainment was reading books. And I think that helped, a year as a young person reading, you have no entertainment. So books is your entertainment. And then the outside, which we are pretty outdoorsy anyway. So I think between those two things, you can't help but become a creative person. And not to mention, man, if anyone has kids, the best thing I can say is get them to read books, because school was a joke for me. Besides math and science, that was a little hard, but it was a joke. After reading, we read 100. I would come home and read books in a day. That day, I would finish the book.
Is there anyone that sort of like inspired you when you got access to like TV and film again, where they're like actors and films you looked at and you went, "Oh, I think that could be me. That's really inspiring."
I really like Saturday Night Live. We used to record it and watch it on VHS. This was long before I ever even thought about being an entertainer. I just really liked SNL, and I really like good comedians. I was really into comedians a lot. When I started acting, I did stand-up comedy first for like 3 months before I ever did a monologue or anything like that, And then I took an improv class, and then I started working at Universal Studios in Orlando, and then kind of learned everything from there.
I'd read that you were sort of in the army. How did you transition from that to kind of a career in cinema?
Well, that's a good question. So I was in the army, and I hated it. Hated it. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were a bunch of good people in there. I worked with a lot of really good soldiers, but I just felt really boxed in. So I got out. So in the last 3 months, it takes forever. In the last 3 months, you're basically not doing anything because they're transitioning somebody else in your job, and you're just kind of like there and helping out where you can and planning like softball games. So you're sitting around being like, what am I going to do when I get out of the army? So I came up with 2 things. I want to go be an English teacher, and I want to try stand-up comedy. And so I went back and I started working as a substitute teacher. And the first chance I got, I passed an open mic night at Stardust Cafe in Orlando. And I just went and kind of like, the rest is history,
You're an actor in a huge range of like productions and roles. How would you describe your career? Because I'm sure a lot of people that maybe watch Zola will go, I recognize that guy from something. That you've probably appeared in most people's favorite TV shows.
Probably, right? Yeah, it's crazy. I'm still waiting for my big break, honestly, where they're like, hey, Manhunt was big. I got to do like 4 episodes of that, and Bloodline was big, even though it was that was one of my first gigs. But I would say I always play characters who kind of play by their own rules. And that's what made the army difficult for me, is I don't really like being told what to do. And so all of my characters are like, I play by my own rules. I'm always that guy, whether it's the wild guy in Succession who's just like, yeah, fucking let's party, or it's uh like a stone cold killer, like I played in, what's that show called, Equalizer on CBS with Queen Latifah. It's always someone who's just like, this is how I do things.
I'm going to have to obviously ask you about Succession, but for those whose first introduction was Zola, what would you kind of recommend people check out, and what's some of the work that you're really proud of?
That's a great question. I'm really proud of my work on Chicago PD. I think that was one of my best roles. I really liked Manhunt on Netflix. I mean, I put my heart into everything I do. Like I don't mean this to sound egotistical, but like 100%, I work 50% harder than most of the people at my level. 100%. Because I spend hours and hours and hours and days and months preparing my character for Chicago PD. And then even the night before, I was ready. But even the night before, I got on I think they call it the L in Chicago. And I was just riding back. I just rode it all the way to the end and all the way back. And I was just looking around Chicago and really thinking about this character's backstory and current situation. So then when you show up, you're there. Because it's like asking me to be Tony Demil. It's easy because I've already lived my life. So I've lived this character's life when I show up. So when you're doing a scene with almost no dialogue and the script soup comes up and is like, hey, like, you're really good. That's because of the pre-work that you've done. So I don't know, man. I'm really proud of all my work. Zola's dope. Zola's the coolest project I've ever been a part of, because I saw it and we were like, whoosh. I only get one page of the script or whatever. I have no idea what's happening. This script, I got like almost nothing. And, because there wasn't a whole lot of dialogue in our scene. And, I would say Zola's up there with one of the projects I'm most proud to be a part of, because it's like being a part of the show Euphoria. It's a groundbreaking. It's really cool and stylized, and there's amazing music and amazing colors, and it's different. And it's like Zola's like 5 movies in one, you know?
Kind of with Succession, how did that opportunity come around?
Oh, well, that's a good question. A friend of mine, Lauren Benetti, she's an actress also. She lives in the Southwest of United States. And that's a burgeoning market also. So she was getting cool auditions. So I was like, hey, should I get an agent there? She's like, yeah, I'll talk to my agent for you. So I'm with PB Talent over there in the Southwest. And they had an audition. And I'm telling you, man, I did it in one take. It's not a character that I normally play. I normally play like basically forward-facing bad guys. So we turned on the camera, we did one take. I was like, yeah, man, I think that's pretty good. And, I was snowboarding one day and they were like, yeah, you booked it. So it's like, cool. It was cool because they shot in New York and then the Southwest and then in Paris. So I got to be a part of the Southwest production.
So with something like Succession, like you were in like early doors, and it's one of the things with Succession, you can always say, oh, that episode was my favorite. That was also one of my favorite episodes, because I think every one of them is. You were in there like early doors. Did you think Succession would become this breakout show that people loved?
Well, you know what's funny? It was what I like about it, and I think Zola is going to be the same thing. These shows that we make now, first of all, the way shows are released, there's so much content out there. And, like, for example, I did the show Manhunt. It was released on Spectrum and then Stars. And then, so Spectrum's a very specific cable network here, right? And then, so like, maybe a third of America has even heard of it. It's just very niche. It's only in specific markets. And then it was on Stars, which is basically a pace channel. And then it was on CBS, which ironically, like, not a whole lot of people saw it, but more people started to see it. Once it went on Netflix, it was just like, boom, I got like 5 messages a day. So in that same way, it takes shows a long while to catch on. I mean, I don't think Game of Thrones is really, when I was on Bloodline was the most popular show in the country. We were getting better numbers than Game of Thrones. It took Game of Thrones a long time where people really caught on to it. It's a very specific show on a specific network. And so I think Succession was the same thing. It didn't really start taking off until season 2. Season 2 came out, and by episode 3, by the time they released episode 3, I went to New York for a premiere for Long Gone By at the New York Latino Film Festival. And all of a sudden, there's just billboards everywhere and buses and this and that. And it took a while for that one to blow up. And then season 2 comes out, and then everyone starts contacting me. Oh my God, bro, like, you're in Succession. I love this show. I'm like, see, it's amazing.
What's it like to take meth with Jeremy Strong then?
You know what? He's dope. He's an actor who doesn't like to rehearse. He's very method. And, season 1 of a show, that's episode 7, and it hadn't come out yet. So all the writers were there, and people were heavily involved in the process. I've never been on such, first of all, it was so intense because they're so like, holy shit, we got to make this good. We're spending a lot of money on a show. This needs to be good. And every decision was like vital. Director came up to me. I had a hat originally, and he's like, hey, how do you feel about the hat? I'm just like, honestly, I love everything about my outfit besides the hat. He's like, let's get rid of it. We had a little meeting with the writers, and they were like, yeah, let's get, because I have long hair, right? I went to wardrobe that day, and it was like, they were like, cool, we're picking out wardrobe. And I was like, I like that one. They're like, let's do it. I went to the tattoo artist. He's like, where do you want the chest? I'm just like, the tattoo. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I want it right here so I can be like, oh, like I already saw it. He's like, yeah, dope. So it was a very collaborative environment. And, the last scene that we did where Kieran Culkin walks in, we didn't rehearse or anything. The director's like, cool, we're set up. Let's just do it. There was not a lot of dialogue. We improvised most of that last scene. And it was like walking on a tightrope. I mean, I'm sitting there with Jeremy Strong and Kieran Culkin, 2 of the series regulars. And I'm just like, we're like, fuck it. Like, let's see what happens. It was very exciting. And what was cool about that show too is I've never had 2 actors who were series regulars in the van on the way back to base camp talking about the scenes and talking about the work. No disrespect, the actors are amazing. They're talking about where they're going that weekend or how their girlfriend's doing or their new baby. They were literally talking about the scene. I was like, yo, this is going to be good. This is like going to be a good show, It was so cool. And so when we do that last scene where we're joking around, where he's on the phone and we're fucking clowning him about being rich, that was all improvised. They're like, cool, don't worry about the dialogue. You guys got like a minute, 2 minutes. Let's just say whatever you want. And we just fucking went off for like 3 minutes. It was very tense. You could feel the tension, but it was also so like, it was like walking on a tightrope doing that show.
I think there's 2 bits of dialogue I always think of in that scene where Jeremy Strong's character speaks to you and he goes, you got any wolves around here? And you're like, nope. It's just like immediately puts him down. And I think it's one of your housemates that's like, when they've left the house, that was like, and tell bloody Bill Gates, like, my computer's been destroyed with all the updates, and just like the venom in his voice that he's so pissed off at Bill Gates. I love those 2 lines.
Yeah, dude, that actor's dope. And that was all improvised. And also that wolves around here, I go, no, I fucking wish. When you watch a project and they leave all the improv in, you're like, that's a production that really respects the creativity of the actors, as opposed to show up and do our lines. You're just like, this is not do you know me? And Succession is a good script. I mean, most of the scripts I get, I'm just like, okay, this is okay. Chicago PD was very like standard, still very good. Vampire Diaries, you read them, you're like, this is good. But a lot of scripts, I just got a script the other day for a show, and it's on a large network, and I was just like, there's like grammatical errors in this. So if you don't trust the actors to improvise and say things in their own way, I think you're really missing out on how good something could be. But they really respected us on that set in that way.
I wonder if it comes from thinking of like Jesse Armstrong. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but he comes very much from that British comedy background. Great shows like Peep Show, where it's all about, the actors will improvise it. They will have like the script, but they always hire those comedic actors that can go,
Sure.
oh, I think I've got something to bring here. And they've probably got that trusting element where sometimes you get the impression in Hollywood that's like the script is king. And if you want to change a line, well, it has to go up to the writer's room, the producers, and it just becomes totally lost.
Sure. It is like that. Sometimes it's changing quite a bit. When we did Manhunt, the writer was right there on set and he was super cool. I was like, hey man, do you mind if I say this instead or add this line? He's like, yeah, cool. So I think it's changing a lot. I think, you know, the more network a show is, I think the more they stick to the dialogue. Like HBO is going to be a lot more free than like CBS. But having said that, I think it's also changing a lot. I improvised quite a bit on Chicago PD, and they kept some of my improvisation in there, so that was nice.
Knowing how much time and effort you now put into preparing for your roles, how much effort did you put into creating that amazing wolf howl that we got a little bit of a preview from earlier?
I just think about my character, and I just think about like what would be fun to do. And you have to go live as this person. And generally speaking, people are, this character certainly on Succession is people do drugs because they're running away from reality. Do you know what I'm saying? Whether it's like the relationship that's not healed, I had a pretty extensive backstory for that character, which I won't go into because it'll make me emotional. But ostensibly, people are doing drugs because they don't want to experience this other thing. So like, that's why this guy could be so wild, because he was running away from like the emotions he didn't want to feel. Like, that was a very fun one to prepare. Honestly, I forgot about how much work I did on that one, but yeah, that was dope. That was a good one. That's a dope show. And they can tell. You can tell when someone's shown up and done the work, because then if something changes, they're like, yeah, cool. Okay.
And is it a challenge to act drunk and drugged up? They always say it's one of those things, it's so easy to do it really badly, whereas all of you guys did it so well. How as an actor do you get into that mindset?
I did a lot of research on YouTube for what the different drugs make you feel. And people on meth are very much like, oh yeah, I'm just cleaning this computer. I just got to get hey, don't worry about me. But they actually said, the director came up to us and said, do not play the drug. Don't play the drug. And that took a minute for me to settle in. I definitely needed a couple different takes on certain coverage of me. Because, you do an audition and you're like, cool, that's how they want it. They cast me. But really, they don't always. In fact, a lot of times they're just like, oh, this person's a good actor. We'll just direct them on set. And you get there and you're like, oh, I need to let go of all this preparation I've done for this specific thing. But I do research on YouTube. It's really easy to go and you can see ex-addicts talking about crack and meth and all these different things. Plus, I've done my fair share of experimentation.
When did you first hear about the opportunity for Zola?
Zola was a funny one because it was casting. It was a modified low budget, which means it wasn't quite a full-scale production, which a lot of times that means you're never going to see it again, and it's going to be garbage, quite frankly. Not garbage so much, but it's going to be like, oh, wow, Netflix bought this? Okay, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, you get the script, and the script was very vague on this one. I think I had 2 lines in the audition, but I got this from my agent. And there was a casting director. Let me see if I can think of her name. In Tampa, Kathy Laughlin, who I used to go to when I lived down in Florida. Basically, she did a lot of commercials. So there's a lot of things you're like, what is this? What is happening with this? Like, who's? So I just, I don't even remember what I did, but I just threw something on tape. And then the cool thing about that was Janicza. She called me up and she's just like, hey, this is an audition. I just wanted to talk to you before I offered the role. And I mean, obviously there's some the scene's pretty intense. It was honestly at that point, it was the most intense scene I had ever done in my life. Mm-hmm. I literally, after we did the first take, I walked to the green room and I was just like, what the fuck just happened? Like, when shit gets real all of a sudden, the takes after that got easier and easier and easier and stuff. But that first take, I was like, what the fuck just happened? But she called me up and she was just very open about talking about shit. And then she came up to me at the end, I was hesitant to do it, obviously, right? And then, and even on set, like Riley was just like, "Oh, is this your first time doing a scene like this?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "I've done a bunch." And Janicza was like, "Yeah, me too." So I'm like, they calmed me down, they cleared the set. And then at Sundance, she comes up to me after the showing at the cast party, and she was just like, "What'd you think of the scene?" I was like, "Holy shit, that was fucking." She's like, "I told you." Yeah, I told you. Because man, when I watched it at Sundance, I feel like my scene is a scene where it's just like the record scratches.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a moment where shit starts to get really fucked up. And in the first showing, you hear, we're in a room with like 3,000 people, and someone just goes, "That's disgusting." Like loud over everyone, whispering, but everyone can hear it. The next time we watch a showing at Sundance, two people in my scene, two people fucking got up and walked out. I was just like, I mean, you can't, that's the best compliment that you could get.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
saw a film. The film I saw before Zola at Sundance London was another A24 film called Pleasure. I don't know if you've heard about that one, but it's about a Swedish porn star that goes to LA to like star in porn. So there's like a scene 12 minutes in where like this girl has like cum on her face, and someone went, "Will I go get like a towel for you?" And she went, "No, get my phone." And she just like takes photos with like taking pictures with cum on her face. And a guy, older guy, grabbed his bag and literally ran out of the press screening. And this is one of the best things. You were like, I mean, this film is wild, but like it was just so funny just seeing this guy running out the screening, and everyone just started laughing at this old man racing as fast as he could out of the screening. He was that shocked and repulsed by it.
Well, man, there's a show called, a theater show called, first of all, let me just say this. I can't tell you how many movies I've seen where the only reason I know what the bad guy is trying to do is because I'm like, oh, there he's trying to. It's so easy to not play a bad guy well.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody has such a visceral reaction like that, what's a show called? It's a theater show. They just did it last year here in Atlanta, and it's called like it has an interesting name. Anyway, when the show premiered, there were like riots. People were like walking out of the theater and just being like, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean? So to me, yeah, we need movies like Rocky, which I love, by the way. Sylvester Stallone's a fucking badass.
Yeah.
And Marvel movies, and we need Loki, and we need all this, but we also need cinema. We need films to come out and challenge people. We need documentaries. We need all these, film is still art. It's entertainment, but it's also very much art. So I love companies like A24 that put out shit and you're like, oh, that was really different. I mean, this film's so cool. Zola's so cool. I was watching and I was sitting next to the girl, Neek. Her Instagram's like Neek something, but she did all the musical selection. I hit her up again after I saw the movie for the third time. I was like, you like killed it in that fucking movie. Like the music in this movie the soundtrack is amazing.
Yeah, Mika Levy is one of my favorite composers at the moment.
Oh, dope. Yeah, she's cool too. She's really nice.
Yeah, I love her. Under the Skin score is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, I was thinking about, like, something like, I think it was, like, Matt Damon that was chatting last week while he was eating, like, hot wings or something. He was talking about, and I think it applies to films like Zola, where it was, like, in the early noughts, the DVD would kind of be the king. And, like, films like Zola could go into the cinema, make a bit of money, they would make all the rest of their money on, like, DVD because people would see it. Do you think films like Zola are, like, sort of, is it good that there's things like sort of your A24s, your Neons, Annapurners that are releasing these, as you say, kind of low budget movies into cinemas that people can see? So there's the Marvel movie, you can go see Black Widow, but then you can go see an 8 o'clock showing of kind of Zola.
Yeah, man, I think it's really cool. I think, cinema is very much now, especially, I don't know how it is for you guys in the UK, but basically over here, if you go to the movies, you're watching $150 million film. Mm-hmm. And then now, like you said, you'll get a couple weeks run, maybe a month run of a movie like Zola, or I am the documentary about Rita. What was her name from SNL who passed away? She was really funny.
Too sure, sorry.
Anyway, stuff like that, where you watch a documentary about Bill Murray. But the cool thing about how things are released now is then they can release that on VOD, which where Zola is now, make a bunch of money, and they can be like, okay, cool, now we're going to sell to HBO, and they've already got the warm up buzz a little bit. So when people see the poster for this on HBO, it's going to be one of the most popular movies on HBO or whatever it's released on for at least a month. So I feel like there's lots of ways for filmmakers to recoup their budget. I mean, I've been in movies that are like, I've been in fucking pieces of shit, that very amateur films. Let me say it like that. But and they're on VOD now. I'm like, really? Like I was in this, and like I would not put it on VOD, but you know, it's a great way for, what do they lose? Let's say they give you $10,000 for your film, they put it on VOD, they make $30,000. What do they lose? It's like if you already have a store and you know your friend makes candles, you're like, whatever, put them at the front. I already have the store. So I think there's a lot, maybe people don't go to the movies as much as they used to, except to see stuff like Marvel and Disney films and, you know, the bigger budget films. But I think the way that they do streamings where they have 5 different releases, you know, I think it's a really good opportunity for, if a film is really good, like Zola and like the film Pleasure, that sounds, I cannot wait to see that. There's a lot of room for them to get their money back, you know?
And I think you see it with things like Zola. Like Zola, it would have been so easy to have dumped on VOD, even things like The Green Knight. Like those films were postponed like over a year, and they were like, no, we want to release these in the cinemas, and it would have been so easy to win, oh, chuck it on Apple TV, chuck it on Netflix, let's get rid of them. But they held off on these movies that, you know, and it helped bring people back to the cinema. You see Zola made an impact at the cinema, Green Knight second at the box office last week. Those are real impressive for indie movies.
Yeah. And you know what was cool is Janicza, when she was being interviewed at Sundance, after the first screening, they're like, oh, I heard you got distribution from whoever, and I can't remember who they said. It was HBO or something like that. And she was like, oh, that's international. She's like, A24 has their own distribution. Like, she's such a fucking boss, dude. Yeah. She does not give a fuck. And that's why her work is so good. She has like a singular vision. She's like, I was on set and I was like, what if I did this? She's like, no, we're just going to do it like this, but not like rude, just matter of fact. And I was like, okay. Okay, you know exactly, because when a director's like that, you know, after your scene, if she's like, that's good, that's what I wanted, she's not bullshitting you. You know what I mean?
How familiar were you with, like, sort of like, obviously the film is based on the Twitter thread. How familiar were you with that story? Was that part of your research to dive into, or did you just go, I'm just focusing on the script?
Zero familiar, and I'll tell you why. A lot of times my character, it would make no sense to know the entire story of these people. And a lot of times if you do know the entire story of the people, like, it would change how I behave. So, you know, if I'm about to rob someone and I found out like her character has like cancer and she has 2 kids at home, like, that's going to be like a lot more difficult for me to do my job. So if I'm in a little tiny bit of the script, sometimes I'll just read that and I'll make my own backstory. If I'm in a lot of the script, like Manhunt, I'm like, cool, I need to read the entire scenes because I'm in this, I'm a part of the world. Some things I just have to ignore once I read them, like, oh, I wouldn't really know that. But a lot of times when I'm developing these more supporting characters, it doesn't do me any good to read the whole script, you know.
How did you prepare for this role? And in terms of creating a backstory, your character is interesting. It's amusing, but slightly creepy when he's there within a couple of minutes of like, oh, we've got someone coming up. And you kind of think, wonder what he's been up to. Like, where has he come from at like 3 a.m? There's so many questions that are going through my head as an audience member. How did you prepare for the role? And what did you kind of create potentially as the backstory?
I'm so glad you asked me that, because I had just finished this project called The Evening Hour, which also ironically went to Sundance and is just getting just had a New York premiere, because, you know, they pushed it too. And we went to Sundance and then pandemic happened, so they pushed it. They just had the New York premiere about a month ago, and then they're doing LA premieres right now, which unfortunately I can't attend. But I had just developed I worked on that project for like 3 months, and ironically my character had originated from Tampa. So I went up there, blah, 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 a bunch of stuff happens. I'm steady developing my character for like months and months and months. And then I booked this. So I'm just like, perfect. This guy gets released from jail. And his boss is like, hey, you need to get to Tampa to like cool things off a little bit. So I get on my motorcycle, go down to Tampa, and then boom, right into Zola. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I had already spent months and months and months. I was just like, this is this same person. You know what I mean? And what ironically too is I had developed a whole different character for this guy. And then I showed up the set and she's like, oh, I want this more like this. And I was like, oh, I have to use this other character that I developed. They want me to be a bad guy. Because I didn't know. I had to create a whole separate character for Zola. But once I showed up and she gave me the first direction, I was like, oh, I needed to be this character now. So I went to the green room and I was like, tweak. Okay, cool.
And was there much kind of, I suppose you're kind of semi-based on a potentially real person. Did you get much of an insight from the people involved about this kind of character, or as I say, it was just sort of left to the writing of the kind of script and the work?
Yeah, they never tell you anything. I think once in a blue moon, the director be like, but honestly, they just trust you to show up and do your job, which I think is scary as fuck, but it's also really cool if you think about it, you know?
Yeah. You mentioned potential nerves about the film. What was it that had you a bit nervous, and how did you kind of overcome those nerves?
Well, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but when I spoke to Janicza, she was talking about all the people that she knows who've done similar scenes like that. And I looked up one of the actors because one of my favorite actors, Sarah Silverman, I just think she's so cool, you know? She's done some independent films where she's had pretty intense graphic scenes. And I looked up Sarah Silverman and none of it comes up. So I'm just like, no one gives a fuck. No one cares anymore. I mean, to me, if you, for example, let's say the film Pleasure, the actress in it. Yeah. If you look at a film like Pleasure and be like, oh, wow, what do you think about that scene where you had like, where you were reenacting a porn scene? You're like, that was your takeaway from the film? Like, that's basic as fuck. Do you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like how we are, if we think about how the whole Monica Lewinsky situation went down. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
Right, the whole world, right? We were like, oh, well, she's this and she's such a tramp and she's this. And now in 2021 eyes, you're just like, no, she was like a young girl who had a crush on this man and they had a I heard an interview with her the other day and you're like, it's so interesting how far we've changed. So to look at Monica Lewinsky and be like, oh, or what's that? Nancy Sinatra, the boots are made for walking, or all the people from the 70s, you're like, oh, we were super backwards back then, where how we looked. So if someone watches this film and is like, looks at the leads in the film, like, I saw you naked, you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Yeah. Like, that's your takeaway from this film? Like, go watch something else, bro. This is an artistic film.
Yeah. And you watch one indie movie, you've seen it all kind of when it comes to the human body. Like, I couldn't help but think of like Under the Skin again, where I saw that again for the multiple times I've seen it last week, and another A24 film. And I completely always forgot, like, Scarlett Johansson has a nude scene in that, like, completely nude. And you kind of completely forget every time, because whenever people talk about that movie, you think you've got one of the world's most known actresses, something like that. But no one ever talks about that movie in anything other than what an amazing performance, this scene, like, that never seems to kind of come up. I think it's testament to the viewers of that kind of world, I think.
Yeah, and I think no one's going to see a movie like that for the sensationalism. Mm-hmm. You know, like I just think we're maturing a lot as a nation. Probably anybody you want to see naked, you can go on their Instagram and see most women that you know or guys you know shirtless in a bikini. So I think it's like, okay, like the taboo of that. I mean, it's always a little bit shocking when you're watching a movie, even a TV show, even me, I'm just like, oh, okay, we're going here. I was just watching a show on Showtime, Joking, which is super cool. It's really dynamic. And with Jim Carrey and a couple other people, Frank Langella, who's, God, such an amazing actor. And there's a woman in it who's a great actress, and she does a topless scene. You're like, whoa, hello, here we go. But it's not, to me, it's basic as fuck. if somebody interviewed Scarlett Johansson, it was just like, oh, what's up with that nude scene? You're just like, I mean, like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Like, that's, first of all, why are we shaming each other for nudity? Because that's a very fucking toxic trait. That's a very toxic trait. And that's why there's such an underbelly of porn, because we're like, oh, we're naked. You're like, okay, babies walk around naked all the time. When do we start shaming each other for like nudity? Like, that's so fucking basic. That's basic. You know what I mean?
You made an excellent point earlier where you talked about like your scene is the needle scratch. I'd kept myself ignorant kind of about Zola. Like I remembered the Twitter thread at the time, but I considered it a spoiler if I went back and read it before watching the film. And what I thought Zola was going to be was I thought it was like the first 25 minutes. These people go down to Florida. There's hijinks and antics in strip clubs. I didn't really know the rest. And then it comes to your scene where it's like, oh, this is really bloody much. This is a darker story than I anticipated.
Sure.
And I think that immediately begins where you get that slight racial tension between your character and Zola, where it's like, I ordered a white girl. And then it's like you turn around and you meet Stephanie, and it's like, how old are you? And it's just that moment like, oh, this is just really odd and uncomfortable. And as I say, you signify that kind of twist in the plot, really.
Yeah, and I really, if you notice, there's like really fun, cool, interesting, different music, and it's pretty wild. And there's a little bit of tension in some scenes before between, you know, some of the leads. What's his name? Brown hair, tall guy, white dude. He plays Riley's boyfriend.
And Nicholas Braun, also from Succession.
Oh my God, he's so. I watched the movie again in New York. I'm like, he is so fucking good. Everybody's good in this movie, first of all. You know, Coleman's on Euphoria too. Coleman Domingo. They're so fucking good. I watched the movie again. I was like, God, this guy is. I hope people understand like what a good job he did. He fucking crushed it. And it's kind of light and it's kind of fun. It's a little dorky, and it's like, and then in my scene, there's like, it goes dead ass silent. And man, at Sundance, you could have heard a fucking pin drop in there. 3,000 people, dead ass silent movie theater. You're like, oh, this shit is kind of fucked up now. Yeah, man, I really liked it. It was really fun to be a part of. You know,
what were Taylor Page and Riley Keough like as scene partners?
So cool, so fun. There was I went up to Janicza and I was like, hey, do you mind if I say this in the next scene? She's like, yeah, no, go ahead and did it. So at the end of the scene that we do, I don't want to, you know, give too much away because I don't want to ruin for people. But I lay down next to Riley and I go, I love you. And she's like, I love you too. And then after we said cut, she's like, what the fuck is going on, dude? They were so fun. And her and Janicza and Taylor had such a fun like relationship. You could tell they've been working together for a long time. I was like, y'all. And by the way, Riley, you know, she's done period pieces, and she's like just talking normal and this and this and that. And you look up the work she's done brilliant work.
Yeah,
she's so actress. Intelligent. And then the scene starts, and she's just like, what we supposed to do with this and this and that? I'm just like, holy fuck, you're fucking amazing. She's amazing, dude. Yeah. I mean, God, it's so fun to work with great actors. And they're cool as fuck. They were cool as shit. You know, it's always a little weird for them when they have like, you know, it's always when you show up, there's a little bit of there's the in group and you're in the out group just because they all know each other. They've been working together. But like they were 3 days on set and we would have been like best buds. Like they were so professional and so cool and so welcoming. You know, I just have so much respect for, not to mention they did a favored nations contract, which means we all get paid the same, which was not much for them. I mean, for them, it's like, they basically did it for nothing. You know what I mean? So that means they're there for the art of it, you know?
And when you kind of look back on your brief experience on the set, and here we are a couple of years later still talking about it, how do you kind of look back on your Zola experience?
Man, I love it because, like I said, when I watched it, I was sitting next to Neek. I had never seen it, you know, and I had no idea. I saw one page of the script, and I was there for my scene, and that's it. And the film fucking blew my mind. I mean, I was like, oh, this is a fucking masterpiece. Like, this is next level art. This is not, we made a really good movie. This is like, I made a really good movie, and then I turned it into a work of art
Mm-hmm.
with this and this and this and this. And the thing is fucking amazing, you know, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think when I spoke with Janicza, she spoke about how kind of like she was inspired by so many different like artists and so on. Like I'd love to kind of watch this film with like a kind of marathon of like all these different influences that she had in the film, because it is so beautifully put together. It's, as you say, you can see that sort of parallels with something like Euphoria, which it just elevates the genre it's in.
Sure, yeah, Euphoria could just be a regular old show about teens being wild and doing drugs and having sex, and you're like, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
They add colors and they add cinematography and they add all these interesting twists and turns, and they just make it 30% better. You know, oh God, what a good show. I mean, I auditioned for a recurring role in that show the other day, and I was like, God, please, I would love to be in this show.
We are going to get you back on the show. If you get that role, we are going to have to get you back. We obviously, it falls under the category of A24. We've had a couple of Euphoria folk on, so that'd be awesome to have you back.
It's A24. Do they produce?
They do,
Euphoria?
yeah. That I mean, HBO.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, so really great show. I can't wait for second season.
I heard the directors. Well, you've seen the limited second season, right?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are really good. Those are very theatrical. I was like, I feel like I'm watching a fucking like what's the director, the Russian director who wrote The Stronger. Anyway, I feel like I'm watching like a Russian play right now. It's so intense, you know. Coleman Domingo, right? He killed it.
He's
right?
so good. He's amazing in everything at the moment. And ever since I watched Zola a couple of weeks ago, as someone that loves pina coladas, that line lives in my head rent free.
Pina colada.
It's so good, so good. Did you ever get the chance to meet the real life Zola?
I did at Sundance. She was really cool. You know, she was shy. You know, that wasn't. I imagine it was like a new experience for her coming into the film world, but her Instagram is very dynamic, and she's like, I'm like proud of her, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? For like stepping out of her comfort zone and being like, this is going to be a new journey and experience that I'm going to go on, and like she's embracing it. You know, she's very shy, very shy. To me, you know.
What were some of the highlights of the film for you? Obviously, you kind of zeroed in on your scene that you were in. Like, there's the rest of this film is going on. When you got to see the finished thing, what's been some of your kind of favorite scenes and highlights?
God, that's a good question. I love the music in general, and this is a tripped out soundtrack. I love the cinematography. I love the way that she set up the scenes. I loved when it was like an actual tweet, you know, that had been sent. I loved just the way that they expressed the ideas of the stories and what the characters were going through. They didn't hit you over the head with it. They trusted the intelligence of the audience to be like, oh, she was like there for it in the car, and now she's like missed me with this shit because it's getting fucking, you know, we've all been on a car trip when it's like, yeah, we're going to fucking Vegas, and 17 hours later you're like, Vegas. You know what I mean? Like it's, I don't know, I would say the music probably is my number one. Hannah Montana.
Yeah, that's
Hannah Montana.
That is a catchy tune that's in my head too.
But I think the music, honestly, they should get it. I would be surprised if this film does not get an Oscar nod. The music alone should win an Oscar. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Was it frustrating for you when obviously there was a delay with this film, something that you're really proud to have worked on, a really exciting A24 film? Was it one of those things like when COVID kind of kicked in, because this was a film that was one of the early ones pushed back, that it's kind of got kicked into the long grass of 2021?
You know what was frustrating is after Sundance, when they canceled South by Southwest the week before it happened, and I was literally had a film set to premiere there, which I had a fairly large part in, and is really also fucking good and would have been amazing and a huge release. But Zola was cool because, you know, we got to see it at Sundance. So after that, it's just like, cool, how are they going to release it? Mm-hmm. So that wasn't as painful because I'm like, they're going to handle it. They know what they're doing. And the film's really good. So when it, you know, worst comes to worst, if they just had to release it on HBO. HBO is one of those channels you go for and you're like, this is going to be really good content. Mm-hmm. It's not like they're releasing on Netflix and you're like, I hope people see it. Not, you know, I love Netflix, but I'm saying HBO is a little bit more exclusive with the content they put out. So I knew wherever it went, there was going to be an element of exclusivity to it, like art house cinema and limited release. And, and also they got to have multiple premieres. They still had a New York premiere. So I didn't feel as bad at that one. I felt worse about the 24th because I'm just like, man, this is a really good movie and I really want people to see it in theaters. And it's just a shame that, so it wasn't as bad as Zola, because we actually got to have a premiere.
What's it been like for you as an actor sort of during COVID-19? How have you adapted and coped with it?
Let me put it this way. I bought and sold. I have my 5th motorcycle now. I learned how to change tires on motorcycles, which is way more difficult than it sounds. Change the oil, swap out the brakes. I learned how to work on motorcycles. A lot of people were like, are you like practicing monologues? I was like, no, I'm not fucking practicing monologues. I did a couple like casting director, like virtual like showcases. But in general, I just went out and like learned how to be a human being again and focus on other things. It's been really fucking hard. When we got to February, I was just like, it's been like a year. I'm done. I'm done with this bullshit. This has been like the worst fucking year of my life. And shit's still not over. It's been really challenging.
Yeah. What was it like to have worked on sort of an A24 film? And what are some of your favorite A24 films?
The last film that I saw that was A24, I didn't see it. I didn't see this one. the 90s movie that what's his name made with yeah. That I want to see that. But basically anytime I see A24, when my friend Sierra was just like, dude, you're in an A24 film. I mean, it's basically when you see A24, you're like, this is going to be quality.
For yourself, you've mentioned a couple of projects. What things are coming up that we should keep an eye out for? Like I think the 24th you mentioned.
I'm so glad you asked that. The 24 is still on VOD right now, but that's going to be amazing. A show that's coming out soon in September is American Rust on Showtime. I did a couple episodes of that. And then I'm really excited about in December, season 3, I think it is, of Creep Show. Nice. I have a really cool part in an episode on that. I mean, that was one of those sets that you show up and you're just like, I want to do this I want to work on this set the whole year. So Creep Show, American Rust, and the 24th will be coming out probably on HBO or something soon, because that's another film it was Michael T. Williams and Trey Byers from the cast of Empire, a bunch of people from the cast of Empire, and the director, whose name is evading me at the moment, but the director's so cool, and he was a co-writer on The Five Bloods and Black Klansman.
Oh wow.
No, man, it's a good movie. It's a really good movie.
Is
and
it
the way
Kevin
they color
Williams?
Wilmot. Yeah. He's so cool. So awesome. And everyone, again, that was one of those sets where you show up and like the audio guys coming up to you being like, yo, man, you're crushing it, bro. Like when the audio guy cares that much about the overall project, everyone was doing that project as a passion project. So it was really nice. It was intense. That was the one that was supposed to come out at South by Southwest. And it was such a shame because I'm like, for sure, I'm going to meet Spike Lee. 100% I'm going to meet Spike Lee,
Well, if people wanted to keep up to date with any news or developments or find out that moment that you meet Spike Lee and get a selfie together, where's the kind of best social media to catch you on?
Honestly, Instagram. It's at Tony D Mafia, TONYD, and then Mafia, just like Mafia. So Instagram's probably my favorite platform because it's just mostly visual,
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat about your career so far, Succession, Zola, and much more. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real honor.
Man, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it was great to do today.